Thank you for staying with us and welcome to the interview segment. Today is Monday, and as you all know, we'll be discussing political discussions. As always, today we'll be discussing the state of the nation, matters arising from it, which includes the postponement of the gubernatorial elections, and the state assembly election as well, the recent railway accident which happened here in Lagos State, and of course, the tribalism and ethnic bigotry that has been rearing its head into the political scene. And to do justice to this topic, we have with us Mr. Segun Sopitan. He is a public affairs analyst and he will be joining us today to give his thoughts on the issues arising in Nigeria. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you join us on Daybreak Africa this beautiful Monday morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great. Without wasting much of our time, I'd like to to set the ball rolling. So now, a lot of things have happened in the country just last week. We've had the postponement of the gubernatorial and National Assembly elections, state assembly elections, I mean to say. Also, we had the case of accidents that happened here in Lagos, in which as at sometimes last week, they recorded 102 victims, in which 2 died on spot. Also, we had a whole lot of serious campaigning coming from one of the political candidates of Lagos gubernatorial post, among many others. And then tribalism has seemed to be the order of the day, as there was a case in Berger last week where they didn't allow traders to come to their shop because, they told them, you have to come to shop with your PVC and be sure you're going to vote for their preferred candidate. This has been a long overdue discussion, but it's coming again this particular Gen Z era, and everybody's talking about, I wish we are ready for this conversation. Now, I'd like to start the conversation from the postponement of the gubernatorial election. We are used to INEC officials telling us inconclusive, we'd like to reschedule due to 1 or 2 reasons. Do you think right about now, at the current state of the economy, there's cash crunch, there's so many other things, do you think we are supposed to postpone the gubernatorial post, or we are supposed to just do it and get it all over?
Well, thanks for having me again. I think that the postponement is very unfortunate, and it speaks directly to INEC's poor preparation for these elections. And I say that with a big sense of responsibility, because I have gone on air and on record severally in the months leading to this election to encourage Nigerians to vote, to encourage Nigerians to come out, especially young Nigerians who've never voted before, who have never voted before because they lack faith in the system. And I've been on record saying spiritedly that these elections will be different, that INEC had implemented an electoral process that was almost rigging-proof. I say almost because there is no system that is foolproof. So what we've seen happen with this election has left me very disappointed, especially because I put my personal integrity out on behalf of INEC. Now, having said that, one would have expected that for an electoral body that was created in the early 2000s, so they're 20 years old. When you are 20 years old as an organization, there's something they call institutional memory, right? This organization is experienced and has a lot of institutional memory with regards to how elections go in Nigeria. And it is shocking to think that INEC put out guidelines without taking into consideration the likelihood that the outcome of the presidential elections, whatever that outcome would be, the likelihood that it will be taken to court, and the impact that such an event would have on their ability to hold the gubernatorial elections just 2 weeks after. So the Electoral Act makes a lot of very, very extensive provisions for what to do in the case of disputes, setting up of the electoral tribunal, and all of that. To think that the guidelines that draw its powers from the Electoral Act failed to make provisions for what would happen if the contestants decided to go to court. What impact would that have on beavers? What impact would it have on IREG? what impact would it have on their ability to transmit electronically results, and all of that is quite unfortunate. So the postponement is now inevitable because INEC did not anticipate this, in spite of our historical antecedents. So it's pretty unfortunate. It was completely avoidable, I would say.
It was completely avoidable, but then there were a lot of reactions on the high rev and the use of beavers. And INEC has also come out to tell us that apart from the use of our permanent voters card, we can also use our temporary voters card to vote in the first coming Guba polls. Was that really necessary?
Well, yes, and that's part of the innovation that I spoke about earlier when I was speaking with my introductory statement.
Okay.
This election has seen perhaps the largest number of innovations since 1999. So one really had a lot of hope that it was going to be different. One of the innovations that they've introduced is the beavers machine, and the fact that that machine can pull out your records as a voter based on several inputs or sources.
My apologies, I like to cut you short on that point. There was one or two cases of identical twin, that Beavers was unable to fish out the two of them's identity.
I mean, that's very strange. So yes, if the electoral officer that was in charge of that polling unit was trying to use the facial recognition, then of course Beavers would fail. But there is biometric identification, and even identical twins have different fingerprints. Okay. Every single human being, all 8 billion of us on the face of this earth, have different fingerprints. So I do not understand what happened there. I think maybe it was just poor training on the part of
the POs and the APOs.
Yes, the people that were in charge of that particular polling unit. It shouldn't have. So using your temporary voters card, I thought was a very good initiative, because what that meant is that you don't have to be disenfranchised. Yeah, so, the fact that a voter can use his or her voter identification number, VIN, to pull out his record and vote is a very good initiative, because that's what we've always said. The fact that I don't have my physical permanent voters card shouldn't mean that I can't vote, because my records are in your database. So that was a very good initiative.
Okay, sir, but still on the fact that the court ruled that the temporary voters card should be used, but INEC now is still coming out to say that they are not willing to allow people who do not have their PVCs, that's people who have their temporary voters card, to come out to vote. Now it's clashing, of course, because this is a good innovation for people who are willing to vote but did not get the opportunity to get their PVCs. Now, but INEC is come and say they want to appeal this case because they do not want people without PVCs to come out to vote in the upcoming elections. So, what's your take on that? Is this a case of INEC trying not to be innovative, or trying to hold back and not allow people exercise their franchise?
Well, I think what we are seeing is disorganization and lack of coherence on the part of INEC, lack of a policy coherence. So INEC has put out information repeatedly. I heard it myself. I wasn't told. The Lagos State information officer for INEC, I think her name is Nike, I can't remember her surname, but the name is out there. So I'm mentioning her name so that we can actually confirm. Went on air on a radio station, and I heard it, where she categorically stated that people can use their voter identification number to vote. I'm not even talking about the temporary voters card, or a PVC. I'm saying without producing a PVC or a temporary voters card, you should be able to vote. And that information was put out by an INEC official who is in charge of information dissemination. So when INEC then comes out to say, no, if you don't have your voters card, you can't vote, that's conflicting information coming out of the same organization. It's part of the problem that we seem to be facing with a lot of our government institutions and agencies, where you seem to have a lack of coherence in so many areas, and there's a lot of mediocrity and there's a lot of incompetence showing through in what they do. And I'm not talking of just INEC. You can just look across the full.
For instance, the CBN and the Supreme Court.
Exactly. I mean, the central
and
bank.
the presidency.
The central bank has been ridiculously incompetent with the handling of this cashless policy and this currency.
We don't want to go into that commercial because we still have questions on cash crunch later. Now, I want us to talk about Lagos gubernatorial post, for example. It used to be the candidate of the All Progressives Congress and that of the PDP being the forerunner, being at the front of the Guba post. But then, ever since what happened during the presidential polls, Labour Party supporters, fans all over Nigeria and outside Nigeria have decided to support their candidates to the last. And then we've been seeing a lot of things on social media. We've chosen, this is the person we want to choose. And people have been saying, oh, this person you want to vote for is not a Yoruba man. He has a Yoruba surname, but then he has a link to being an Igbo guy. People have been talking about tribalism. Are you sure we are supposed to be talking about tribalism at this current state of Nigeria? If not for what happened between Peter Obi and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do you think tribalism would have come to play, or it has always been there, just waiting for a little spark to light it up?
You know, it's one of the unfortunate realities of our existence as a country is the divisions that we have.
Okay.
We like to call them fault lines. So those fault lines are primarily three. I like to think that there's only one fault line, but when people talk and analyze, the society, the Nigerian society, we talk about the religious divisions, we talk about the ethnic or tribal divisions. Some will, expand that to regional divisions, and then we'll talk about party affiliations and party divisions. Politicians play up these divisions to get their way, to manipulate the mind of the people in their favor. And it's very important that as Nigerians, we don't fall for these tricks. These politicians have been doing this for as long as Nigeria has existed, even before independence, and it's very unfortunate that in the run-up to these particular elections, the way the party primaries went actually produced three candidates of the three major ethnic groups in Nigeria, and therefore further pronouncing these ethnic divisions. So you've seen a pattern where the three major foreigners got the strongest performances in their ethnic stronghold. So Bola Tinubu did very well in the southwest, Peter Obi did very well in the southeast, and who did very well in the northeast.
Then backed up by Kwankwaso of NNPP.
Kwankwaso did very well in Kano.
In Kano only, which is also a part of the north.
Yes, which is again just talking about this, playing up this tribal thing. So it's very unfortunate. It's been with us for a long time, and I believe that we will get away from it.
I would have sworn the whole thing would have ended during the Christian ticket, Muslim ticket.
Yeah, our tribal affiliations are stronger than our religious affiliations. I think if you want to ask the average Nigerian, he is first of all either a Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Shekeri, Igbo, whatever person, before he is a Christian, a Muslim, or an idol worshipper, whichever one that they believe in. So the Christian Muslim debate was played up again. This was just a political strategy by the APC on the one hand, and then the opposition to the APC, the opponents of the APC, tried to use that to fight back. But for me, I've always said, and I'll continue to insist, that a country that works for everybody has no tribal leanings, has no religious leanings. I do not care if our president is from the moon or from Jupiter or from Pluto. If he will deliver a Nigeria that will allow every Nigerian to actualize their full potential in Nigeria, then I will support such a person. So we need to move away from this tribal and religious sentiments when decisions about our leadership, about our national leadership or leadership at the state level. So what we're seeing play out in Lagos now is very unfortunate, has to be discouraged. The candidate of the Labour Party is a Yoruba man. He's a Yoruba man whose ancestry can be traced, in Yoruba land. So it's very strange because he has an Igbo mother that all of a sudden he's seen as an Igbo man. How?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
The way to normally people don't regard the mother's
exactly. Since when did where your mother comes from become the yardstick for where you're from? In Nigeria, your fatherland is your fatherland. You are from where your father is from. And I think it's important for people to understand that this is just political gamesmanship. Nobody cares. All the people that are talking about, oh, Yoruba, if you're a Yoruba man and you vote for Labour Party, you are a bastard or you are a betrayer. They are simply playing up the political sentiment because of what they want to get when they get into power. They don't care whether somebody is Yoruba. In their private circles, go and check every single one of these people. In their private circles, they have very good friends that are Igbo. They have very good friends that are Hausa, from other tribes. They have good friends all over the country. But when it's time for politics, they play up this very, very primordial and primitive sentiments. As long as we continue to allow these types of sentiments to guide, to direct how we make decisions in this country, we will not make progress. It's just the unfortunate reality and the unfortunate truth.
I'd like to talk. Do you like to ask any question?
Yes, still on the Google polls before Mira moved to another question. We've had cases of impounded vehicles being released, pension funds being released to being paid rather, and then promotions long overdue being approved. And this is coming in less than a week to the elections. That was when we're still on the March 11 election date. But now, so is this a ploy by the current governor of, because this is happening here in Lagos State to secure the seat for a second time, because we know that he is running, for a second term here in Lagos State, and then we see this happening, in succession. And Mira has mentioned earlier that, throughout the past week, there's been so concurrent, campaigns by the governor, concurrent, features here and there in different places, public places, just so people can, see him and, cast their vote for him in the elections. So is this a
I think you forgot to mention that we saw him at the mall taking cold stone.
Yeah,
which is something that on a normal day we would not see him.
Yeah. So is this a ploy by the current governor to secure the seat for a second time? Is this him trying to put out his whole being and just make people see him and say, okay, this person can actually do the job?
Look, our politicians have a playbook. They have an MO, modus operandi, a mode of operation, right? Yeah. It's that towards elections, they must show their affiliation to the people. So you will remember every single election prior to this one. You will remember images of the major presidential candidates eating agbado or going to a woman. I remember, I think it was one of the first ladies that went to go and fry akara. With one somewhere.
saw Dino Milai's own.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what they do every election cycle, and what the incumbent governor is doing is just in keeping with what politicians do. They try to show that they're part of you when they need you. The question that we need to ask is, when did we see the very good governor of Lagos State going to a shopping mall to have ice cream and have light-hearted conversation with their attendants? Let's say in 2020 or in 2021, did he do that? Has he been doing this consistently? Hasn't he been unavailable, unreachable to most of Nigerians? Hasn't he even simple state of the state, let me say state of the state address? When was the last time the governor went on TV to explain to Lagosians how Lagos is faring? To explain the finances.
We also heard that he's been denying the press visit, and then all of a sudden he started going to different press stations. All of a sudden
he was on TV. He was on a TV station, in a TV studio. Very unprecedented. It's good and it should be applauded, but it shouldn't happen during elections. When you do it during an election, just before an election, then it's simply deception, and it does not reflect well on you, on your personal integrity. Whoever you are should be who you are all the time. You shouldn't be a particular type of person 3 years out of a 4-year cycle, and then for 3 months out of that 4-year cycle, you become a different person. You become good, you become accessible, you become, a smiling person that, and you are approving pensions and you are releasing impounded vehicles, and all of that. All of this is obviously, in fact, somebody had said somewhere that this can be regarded as vote buying,
Honestly,
because what you're basically doing is you are inducing people to vote for you, in the run-up to the election. So those things that the governor is doing, they're good, but he needs to do them 365 days in a year for 4 years of his next 4 terms. He shouldn't disappear into the normal lack of availability behind the cloak that nobody can see beyond after the election. So for me, nobody should be fooled by all of this. You need to decide whether you have whether Lagos is working for you or not, whether you feel that the incumbent governor has done enough for you as a person, whether you are living the life of your dream in this Lagos. And if the answer is yes, then vote for him. If the answer is no, then look for an alternative. I think that's the works. You shouldn't be fooled by the games and gimmicks that politicians play every 4 years.
Mr. Sopitan, I want us to move away from back and forth of the gubernatorial polls. Just last week, a very sad incident happened. We saw the video on different media outlets where a government staff bus, ran into a train, and then we've seen we've recorded, reports as it are about 102 victims, in which 2 died from the incident. There was an video that trended that a whole Lagos state, the former capital of Nigeria, laid patients down on the floor. The CMD of LUS have come out to tell us that, because of the emergency and there were no sufficient bed spaces in the hospital, they had to resort to building of tents and then treating patients on the floor. Lagos is not one of these smaller states. Lagos is the center of excellence. We are not supposed to see, and LASUT is one of the most recognized hospital in Lagos. Why are we supposed to see? Why then did we see patients being laid down on the road, being laid down for treatment? Why?
Thank you, and God bless you for that question. Because I think that sometimes when these things happen, we miss the lessons and we miss the very, very obvious pointers to our reality. Get carried away with what politicians are saying to us rather than focusing on what is right in front of our eyes. So when people say that Lagos is a mega city, it's the 5th largest economy in the world, and therefore the APC should take credit for this and all of that, the question I always ask myself, and I ask the people that bring those points up, is how exactly does Lagos measure up in terms of the fundamental and basic services that it's supposed to provide to its citizens? How well are the services being provided? Even the accident that happened, Mira, happened because there is no barrier between the road and the rail line.
Yes.
In normal cities around the world, especially in a place like Lagos where there's so much, it's the density,
populated
density, the vehicle density, traffic density on our roads is so high. How can you have rail lines that are crisscrossing major roads in Lagos, and there is no effort by government, either federal or the state government, where those rail lines are passing through, to prevent people from being able to access those lines? It's unbelievable and it's unconscionable, and it's sad that nobody is calling the government out on this. There was a time when, just about a couple of months ago, again, of course, leading to the elections, when the blue line was trending.
Yeah, it got burned.
Yes, and I remember a video that came out of Lagos State government, an official video of the Lagos State government warning people that the blue line is running an electrified rail system, and that if you cross those lines, if you step across any of those lines, that you will be electrocuted and you will die.
You can imagine.
I found that extremely irresponsible, because I thought that given the level of poverty we have, the level of illiteracy, a lot of people are not going to see that message and people are going to die.
Can we chip in the level of coconut-headed citizens?
Exactly. The stubbornness of the average Nigerian citizen, you know. People are going to die in droves if you do not provide barriers that prevent people from being able to enter those places, or that make it very difficult for them to enter. You can't just warn people and say, if you cross this line, you will die. The role of government is to protect its citizens.
In fact, we see traders, you know, on the rail tracks, selling their wares, and then when the train is oncoming, they quickly, you know, pack their wares and just try to move away.
I can get rail track to be precise.
Exactly. So those are the people that you are now saying, oh, if you cross this line, you will die. People are just going to die. So now, back to the point that you raised. At any of our hospitals, Mira, what we see in the news because of this rail accident, this crash, is not new. This is the normal. Whether you are talking of LASUT, whether you are talking of LUTH, whether you are talking any government institution, when there are emergencies and you go there, you see people lying in the corridors because there are no beds. They don't have enough doctors.
Permit me to share this short story, because recently someone very close to me had a surgery at the same LASUT, and honestly, that was when I knew that LASUT is not what we really think it is. Fine, they are trying their best. They give meals to every patient, morning, afternoon, night. They give fruit and all of that. But then the bed space issue has been a very serious thing. The person had to almost take a VIP ward, and the VIP ward was not worth it. He almost took a VIP ward because there was no bed space. After battling back and forth on that, he had his surgery. He stayed 3 or 4 hours in a recovery room just because they were trying to look for bed space where they would take him to. Immediately after surgery, they moved the person to a recovery ward and then to the main ward. They almost discharged this person that same day because of this ward issue. Now, the CND came out to tell us that, oh, each ward has 30 units. It can only take 30 patients, so they cannot acquire more. What has the Lagos State governor been doing? We know that Lagos is, even Ondo State cannot have just 30 units per ward. Let's talk of a large state like Lagos. And then this is a public hospital where we expect more people to go to. And now we've not seen cases where they are treating people on the floor, looking for blood donors up and down. That is a very big eyesore for a state like Lagos State, the center of excellence, the former capital of the country.
So all of those things that you say, they're just rhetoric and they're words. Center of excellence is just a rhetoric. It's not a reality. Lagos has 20 million plus human beings. Yes. You know, I mean, how can we are simply compared to the resources that Lagos State generates? And it's so ironic that when they are campaigning, they use the IGR growth of Lagos State as one of their major achievements. But the question is that how has that IGR growth translated to an improvement in service delivery to the citizens? How has it translated to better healthcare, accessible, affordable healthcare for the disadvantaged and the underprivileged? That is how you know societies that work. It's the fact that the people that are the most disadvantaged get taken care of by the state. How is Lagos State taking care of its underprivileged and its disadvantaged population? And there are many of them, right? How is Lagos State taking care of the education of the indigent and the underprivileged again? You know, how much of potable pipe-borne water is available to the average citizen? So my point, service delivery in Lagos is poor, is abysmal, compared to the resources that is available to Lagos. Lagos State has done fairly well, let me use that expression, for the sake of balance. We can't ignore the things that the state government has been doing since 1999, the relative progress that we've had, especially when you compare Lagos to most of the other states in Nigeria. But the point is that what we see in Lagos is a fraction of what is possible, is a fraction of what we should have, based on the resources that the government generates. So what we saw with the train accident and all of these victims lying on the floor in the hospital is simply a reflection of the reality that we have on our hands. It's ironic that it took an unfortunate incident like this to throw up, you know, this reality for all of us to see. Sadly, people are not going to see it. People are very emotional when it comes to elections, and they're going to explain these things away, and they will not effect the change perhaps that needs to happen for us to see real progress in Lagos, But it's a democracy. People will vote based on whatever sentiments they have, and they will vote where they vote.
Thank you so much, Mr. Segun. We are running out of time now. I would like you to take this as a parting shot. What would you like to tell Nigerians, Lagosians and other people in other states? What should they really focus on? Because we've seen the issues, we've talked about it. But then there will be a change if we, elect the right person into government. So what would you like to tell Nigerians, in the upcoming, beyond the popularity of the candidate and, in the upcoming Guba polls? And
in addition to that, as regards the cash crunch, what would be your advice to Nigerians as they elect their governors in 29 states out of the 36 states of the country? What would be your advice to them, and what words of exhortation do you have to tell Nigerians to hold on until we have more cash inflow and outflow?
Well, I think on the cash crunch, it's very unfortunate. It's not the making of Nigerians, it's the politicization of monetary policy issues is what has led us here, sadly. I will just say to Nigerians, be patient, it will go away. I can guarantee you it will go away immediately after the elections. The situation will be stabilized. So just hold on, don't take the law into your hands, find a way to manage. And very major and important advice, please go digital. It's not difficult. Opening accounts with a lot of...
I think mobile transfer is a bit difficult now.
It's difficult. Yeah. I know, but it's better than you being totally stranded. Yes. So it's better for you to have that option and keep trying, and then eventually maybe after 10 tries or 15 tries, it finally works, than for you not to be able to spend any money at all. So go digital, open accounts with any of the mobile operators, and all of that. So that would be my parting shot on that. As far as the elections are concerned, first of all, for the presidential election, I think it is absolutely critical that we advise ourselves that in spite of the unhappiness that some camps might have, 8 million people voted for the president-elect, 15 million people voted for somebody else. So that means that a whole lot more people did not want this president-elect than did want him. This is a reality. However, we cannot, because of that reality, throw the country, throw away the baby with the bathwater. So now the presidential elections are in court. We need to understand, and this is not just an advice, it is a charge to Nigerians. Nigeria must continue. It is only when we have a country that is surviving and trudging along that we have an opportunity to correct what is wrong. If we burn the country up because we are unhappy with the outcome of an election, we are doing ourselves a disservice. So once the Supreme Court rules, because obviously this case will get to the Supreme Court, whatever the outcome of that ruling, we must abide by it, and we must support whoever emerges from that process, regardless of who it is. That person becomes the president of Nigeria, and we must all gather around him and pray that he succeeds. Now, for the gubernatorial in Lagos...
In 10 seconds, please.
Yeah, for the gubernatorial in Lagos, we need to stop the ethnic narrative and just go for competence, capacity, preparation. We're all Nigerians, and every Nigerian has a right to vote for whoever they want to vote for, and we should stop the violence. I think I would like to drop it on that level.
I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Sopitan, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being a part of us this morning. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir. Yes, we have to go on a short break right now, but we'd like to inform you that the views and opinions here are not the views of KAFTAN Television or the management of KAFTAN Television. We go on a short break right now to return with the concluding part of the program. Don't move. I'm Marcel.